They show no concern whatsoever. They show, Tabligh Jamaat shows absolutely no concern whatsoever with Islamic eschatology that would explain the reality of the world today and which would anticipate the events which are unfolding today and tomorrow. I say that this is not happening by accident, and it is time for us to deliver a wake-up call, lovingly of course, not with boxing gloves, to all those who are members of the Tabligh Jamaat, the only Jamaat in the world, incidentally, which has closed the doors of the masjid to me wherever in the world I have gone. I cannot go into a masjid controlled by Tabligh Jamaat to teach them that which they do not know. And they don't have the teachers to teach it. Most of the Salafi masjids are the same except for, may Allah bless him, Sheikh Faiz in Sydney. Sheikh Faiz, who is the foremost Salafi Sheikh of Australia, graduate of the Islamic University of Medina. And when I was in Australia for my second visit in 2002, Sheikh Faiz came to my home where I was staying and brought a Lebanese breakfast one morning so we could sit down and have Lebanese breakfast, and then invited me to his center to give a lecture on Islam and the international monetary system. And before the lecture could take place, he asked me to come into his office. And he said to me, Sheikh Imran, I want to become your student. Those were the words he spoke to me. Well, he's such a learned man, I should be his student. Why is it? Why can't we give you a wake-up call and yet remain brothers with each other? Because your methodology is wrong. You're putting your head in the sand like an ostrich in Tabligh Jamaat and not paying attention to understanding events unfolding in the world is dangerous for the Ummah. It's like sleepwalking through history. I thought Ronald Reagan was the only one who did it. But that's what you're doing, Tabligh Jamaat. Do not be annoyed with me. Do not be offended, because you're my brothers. Now let's come to the methodology. The Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, that every prophet warned about Dajjal. And the Prophet Nuh alayhi salam warned about Dajjal. But I'm going to tell you something that no one has ever said before me. Dajjal sees with the left eye, he's blind in the right eye, it looks like a bulging grip. Dajjal sees with the left eye, he's blind in the right eye, it looks like a bulging grip. But your Lord is not one-eyed. Between his eyes on his forehead is written the word kafir, kafir, kafir. And every mu'min will be able to read it, whether that mu'min is literate or illiterate. And so Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu will be able to read it. Kafir. But Tony Blair won't be able to read it. You know, he was just convicted for war crimes right here in KL. So we sent Tony Blair to the eye specialist. Check out his eyes. Why he cannot read, this kafir? Oh, when you're sending Tony Blair, send George Bush also with him. And then the report comes, nothing wrong with their eyes. Well, then how come they can't read, but the mu'min can read? We say, and this is our viewpoint, and you don't have to accept it, is that when Dajjal sees with the left eye, this is religious symbolism at work, that he is seeing with external sight. And when he is blind in the right eye, this is religious symbolism at work, that he is internally blind. And that's why the kafir cannot read. Because when the mu'min reads, he's not reading with these eyes alone. He's reading with internal sight. And did the Prophet not say, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, I wish I had another 1 hour to deal with the subject. He said, ittaqu firasat al-mu'min فَإِنَّهُ يَنْظُرُ بِنُورِ اللَّهِ. Fear the firasa. The firasa is that hikmah or that wisdom of the believer, which is intuitive in nature and founded on spirituality. Fear the intuitive, internal spiritual insight or wisdom of the mu'min, because when he sees with the nur of Allah. And so this hadith is speaking about epistemology and about spirituality. The absolute imperative of pursuing the spiritual quest, so that you'll have internal nur with which to see, and so that you have a chance of walking in the path of Khidr alayhi salam. After all, it is Suratul Kahf of the Quran, which is the surah of Ilmu Akhiru Zaman par excellence. And Khidr alayhi salam is different from the rest because you'll only meet him where? You will meet him at Majma'ul Bahrain. Majma'ul Bahrain, the place where the two oceans meet. Which two oceans? Go to Imam al-Baydawi and his tafsir. The ocean of knowledge externally acquired, the ocean of knowledge internally received. When these two oceans of knowledge come together, as they did in my teacher of blessed memory, Maulana Dr. Fadl Rahman Ansari, rahimahullah, when these two oceans come together in an individual, in a scholar, and are harmoniously integrated, only then do you have the scholar who can take all the pieces together and solve the jigsaw puzzle and deliver to you the big picture. And so today we address them, Protestant Islam, and we ask you to take another look at epistemology and at spirituality, the methodology that we are offering. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين آمين. There are those who believe that and they are correct, of course, that money in Islam is dinar and dirham. And there are lots of dirhams at the back there, you can take a look at them. Money in Islam is dinar and dirham. Malaysia is minting dinar and dirham now. However, dinar and dirham are still prohibited in this country as legal tender. I understand that Bank Negara is tolerating it because they are interpreting it as barter. Barter. So dinar and dirham is not money, it's a commodity being bartered. There are those who are persuaded, and I don't want to call names, that it is possible for us to overturn the current monetary system of paper money, which is on its way out, and electronic money, which is already here, that we can overturn it and replace it with dinar and dirham at the macro level. I don't think it's possible, but if you think it's possible, go ahead. No, because of my eschatology, I studied Gog and Magog, and there's a book on Gog and Magog at the back. When you study the subject of Gog and Magog, you'll understand that you cannot do it. They're too powerful. So I have offered an alternative. I said, if you can't do it at the macro level, then do it at the micro. At the micro level, those of us who want, not everybody want to get away from the ringgit, those of us who want to return to dinar and dirham and get away from the riba, this small group, we will head withdraw from the cities. And we will head for something called, you're familiar with the word, aren't you? Kampung. And we will build small communities, Muslim communities. And in our small communities we'll have small micro markets. And in our micro markets we will not allow the use of the haram paper money and electronic money. In our micro markets we're going to use dinar and dirham, and when dinar and dirham are in short supply, when the police come and seize all our dinar and dirham, then we will turn to wheat and barley and dates and salt and rice and sugar and what. They can't ban that, can they? So this is my solution, and right here in this hall I have students. Right here in this hall now I have students who are working actively to do precisely that right here in Malaysia.
Next question, please.
It is my opinion that the Arabs are being set up to be slaughtered. Israel has already decided that Israel has to wage big wars to subdue the Arabs. And these wars may include biological warfare, because the Prophet ﷺ prophesied that the Arabs are going to be wiped out by plague. Swine flu, taste of things to come. But Israel does not want to wage her big wars and appear naked before the world as an aggressor, because they want Pax Judaica to look good. And so you bring an Arab Spring, but you can only bring that Arab Spring after you have tortured the Arabs for 40 years, humiliated them, barbaric oppression for 40 years. Only then can you bring an Arab Spring. When the Arab Spring comes, it offers you freedom. That's what they did with the Soviet Union and communism. In order for the United States and Western Europe to look good, they had to engineer a Bolshevik revolution that brought into being communism. And they had to then demonize communism as a prison where people had no freedom. They had to do that to offer a contrast. We are the free world. What nonsense. We have the free market. What rubbish. Which free market? But we swallowed the garbage, didn't we? This is the free world. And this is free trade, and this is the free market, and all that rubbish and garbage. Why? Because they created communism to use that as the bogeyman. And after they had finished that job, then they demolished communism. We don't need it anymore. Similarly, they did that with the Arabs for 40 years, so that they could come with the Arab Spring. You could not have an Arab Spring without those 40 years of torture and oppression. If you had a beard and you land in Egypt as an Egyptian, you're in trouble. Tunisians couldn't go to the masjid. Women couldn't be in hijab. A president in Tunisia said, Ramadan is not conducive to economic growth.